Meanwhile, let's go to Washington. The 2022 Supreme Court term winding down. Today, the justice is issuing a 6-3 decision in a case called Moore versus Harper, which rejected the so-called independent state legislature theory and ruled that state elections can be challenged in court. With more on today's ruling and why you should care in the 2022 session as a whole, we're joined by attorney Jason Harrow. Jason, great to see you.
Good to be with you, Alex.
All right, in the simplest terms, what was today's ruling really about and why do people care?
Yeah, so today's ruling is about who decides some of these really big election questions like gerrymandering and whether mail-in votes are going to count. Some people came to the U.S. Supreme Court saying that when state courts try to overrule lines that the legislature has drawn, let's say districting lines, that those are invalid because the U.S. Constitution, they said, says that only legislatures get to draw them and not even state courts interpreting those laws. What the Supreme Court did in a 6-3 decision was reject that and say, no, the normal process that everyone's familiar with still applies. Legislatures pass laws, courts get to interpret them. There's no short circuit around that. So what this decision does, Alex, I think, is heading into a contested 2024 election, it kind of keeps everything status quo. It doesn't upset anything too drastically.
Right, and notable that it was these conservatives that were pushing to have this happen, but it was a conservative court that decided not to do this. Meanwhile, the big issue that we've been looking forward to, for months now is what is the court going to say about affirmative action? That decision could come any day now. What could potentially happen there?
Yeah, so we expect a decision on either Thursday or perhaps Friday as the Supreme Court issues its final big decisions of the term headed into July 4th. And these are two cases stemming from Harvard and the University of North Carolina that are really the biggest, most sweeping challenges to affirmative action throughout the country, really in many decades in the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, in California, as people know, universities already don't consider race an admission. But there are 49 other states, and many do. So what this would do is set a rule nationally. Right now, affirmative action is permitted in narrow circumstances, and many, many people, based on oral argument, based on the decisions below, based on the public writings of the justices, think that the justices are absolutely poised to tell Harvard and the University of North Carolina, and indeed every other federally funded institution, that considering race at all, even for affirmative action purposes, is not permitted by the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution.
And it's interesting, at the heart of this is really Asian parents who are saying that it's unfair what Harvard is doing because they're advantaging white parents over Asian parents, or white students over Asian students, and so that's at the heart of this case. The next, sort of the big picture question though, Jason, when we look back on this case and this case load for this year with the Supreme Court, the first year for Ketanji Brown Jackson on the court, what's the big headline for this court?
Yeah, with 7 decisions to go, Alex, I think there's been some people saying, hey, this is looking like a much more liberal court than people thought. The Supreme Court hasn't upended everything in the world just because President Donald Trump appointed 3 justices. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a sort of liberal hero, is no longer on the court. People thought it would be the end. I think one takeaway is no, justices and the courts, they move slowly, Alex. They don't change everything all in one year. The other lesson I take away is that decisions and people are quirky. There's only 9 of these people, right? People forget. So one justice can make a difference. A good example from this year is that Justice Gorsuch, a President Trump appointee who's considered a very strong conservative, has stood up for the rights of indigenous Americans in ways that nobody expected. He's been called the most pro-indigenous rights justice in 100 years on the court. Why? He lived in Colorado. He's familiar with the West. He's got a quirky interpretation of the Constitution. People thought this would be a bad era for Native Americans and Native rights. That's proved not to be true, in part because of Justice Gorsuch's opinion. So nobody can predict these with precise certainty. I do think, though, in the last couple decisions, which are about affirmative action and perhaps LGBT rights and some other things, I do think we're about to see some conservative decisions.
Although, as they say in sports, that's why they play the game. You never know what's going to happen, and this is why we got to read the opinions, because we really don't know what's going to happen, except for that one time when they leaked the opinion in advance, but that's a whole other thing. That was the Roe case.
That's right. Nothing is leaked yet, so Thursday and Friday, the game still hasn't been decided.
All right, Jason Harrow, really appreciate your perspective. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Alex.